prosecution outlined how accounting practices did not.
What kind of likeness is that? If they were great artists, they'll be in a museum. I'm fucking fodder for cartoonists now.
And welcome back to Gutter Boys. Gutter Boys is a small press comics podcast about the ins and the outs and the highs and the very, very deep lows of making comics. I hope I did that right because I am your host, Cam. Not here to correct me if I did it wrong is my co-host, JB, but he is on the interview with us today on the second segment after the break. Today we have a very, very special episode for you with long-awaited guest, Connie Myers. Connie is a Philadelphia-based cartoonist. Shout out to the Philadelphia Eagles who have won the Super Bowl, and I think Philly's still standing, but this episode was recorded before the game, so we get Connie's predictions on where the city would stand, whether there was a win or a loss, and we also talk about their brand new book, Big Gamble Rainbow Highway, which is available via Cram Books, and friend of the show, Andrew Alexander, is over there running that, so definitely pick that up. It's an early contender for Book of the Year. I haven't seen it. I've just seen previews, and I can confidently say that. So before we get into that interview with Connie, though, just a little bit of housekeeping here. We are back on Patreon at gutterboys.top or patreon.com/gutterboys on the premium feed this month. New episode coming up. We have a second interview with Ryan Awful Quiet Brosmer. We're getting into Sucks Fest 2, which just happened a couple weeks back. And just catching up, see what they're up to. And coming up in the future, we have our pod within a pod, Real Boys. And Michael Kennedy is going to grace us with his presence on the premium feed and pick us out a movie to watch. We don't know what that is yet, but we will figure that out. And in the next couple of weeks, that episode will be uploaded for you all. Speaking of Michael Kennedy, he will be on the next main feed episode, hot off the release of his brand new book, Milk White Steed, which should actually coincide with the release of that episode. It comes out next week, February 18th is the street date on that from Drawn and Quarterly. So make sure to go pick that up from your bookstore and tune in to hear an episode with Michael. Usually we don't drop back-to-back weeks, but we've been running a little behind. We've actually been working on comics, believe it or not. The both of us working on comics. Can you believe it? So yeah, we've just had a lot on our plates recently. We appreciate your patience, but we are dropping back-to-back weeks, starting with this episode with Connie and next episode with Michael Kennedy. And after that, we plan on settling into a normal groove, but you know, shit happens. So appreciate you riding with us. Yeah, so I guess that's it. We appreciate your patronage. And if not, go give us some money, $5 a month, patreon.com/gutterboys. Get those bonus episodes, over 100 episodes in the vault at this point, featuring guests from previous episodes on the main feed, and we appreciate any and all support as always. So yeah, thanks again for hanging in there, and we'll be back after the break with Connie Myers.
We'll be right back.
Are you ready for a wild ride? Get ready to meet the Santos sisters. Two ordinary girls with an extraordinary secret. One day, while combing the beach in their hometown of Las Brisas, the Santos sisters discovered a pair of beautiful medallions. What happens next changes their lives forever. The medallions are imbued with the powers of a goddess, Madame Sosostris, and can transform them at will into flying, gun-wielding, mask-wearing murder heroes with hearts, if not gold, then at least candy. That's right, it's a mix of Archie Comics meets Love and Rockets with a healthy dose of kick-ass action. Join Ambar and Alana as they fight crime, date dumb guys, and, well, try to stay sane in a world of assassins, zombies, crazy ex-girlfriends, and more. The Santos Sisters Volume 1 hardcover from Fantagraphics is coming to a comic shop or bookstore near you on March 11th of 2025. Don't miss out on this Technicolor tapestry of irreverent comic book fun. Santos Sisters, because life's a beach until it's not.
Indie Northern Kentucky, or INK, is the Northern Kentucky and Cincinnati area's only zine, alternative comic, and small press bookstore, featuring over 400 different zines, alternative comics, and small press titles. A creative space with supplies to ideate and create your own zines and comics, and an event space for your zines, comics, or book release or reading. For more information about how to sell your zines and comics at INK, stop by indieNKY.com. That's IndieSky.com. Visit our new home in Dayton, Kentucky, and read what the cool kids are reading.
Underground Kingdom Comics Presents Romance is the third issue of a new anthology showcasing the UK's most exciting small press cartoonists. This 28-page A5 comic features cover art by Vincent Bell Robertson and comics by Lily Blakely, Adam Falp, and Anna Redmond, plus pinups from Kai Reynolds and Matt Greaves. Daredevils and Warriors wrote, "If you want to leave your comfort zone and are looking for thoughtful and original comics that have an edge without being edgy, then you should check out these UKC books." You can buy Underground Kingdom Comics Presents Romance now, along with the previous two issues, Horror and Crime, and Original Art, by backing our Kickstarter, which is live until Friday, March 15th. Don't be a cunt, buy a comic, innit? Hell yeah. Meow. Meow. Sid the Cat magazine is out now. If you've ever been to an amazing rock and roll show and thought, I wish I could experience this moment again, but in comic form, then Sid the Cat magazine is for you. Fiercely independent show promoters Sid the Cat have joined forces with comics journalist Andrew Greenstone to bring you an ongoing publication that documents the SoCal indie rock scene. This stunning 52-page full-color magazine features comics, articles, photos, and illustrations from a rotating cast of local illustrators and writers. It's a celebration of Sid's artists and venues and supports those keeping the bleeding edge of the indie music scene alive. Our first issue covers musical artists Big Thief, Illuminati Hotties, Mike Kroll, Fucked Up, Finn Lilly, Katie Kirby, Kate LeBon, Cursive, Christian Lee Hudson, No Win, and so many more. If you are a fan of comics, indie music, zines, rock reports, or community by the way of culture, order a copy now at sidthecat.com/sid-zine. Again, that's sidthecat.com/sid-zine.
Athenium Comic Art is an original art website for some of the best cartoonists in the business. They currently represent Remy Boydell, Marie Capelle-France, Nicole Gu, Jonathan Hill, Emma Hunsinger, Casey Nowak, Micah Song, and Tilly Walden. Athenium Comic Art gives fans the opportunity to own an original piece of art from their favorite comics and support the artists that they love. In their short time in business, they've already shipped many iconic pages out to hardcore fans across the globe. Don't miss out on your chance to own a one-of-a-kind piece of history. Check out their website, atheniumcomicart.com, and type in Gutter Gang at checkout to receive free shipping on your first order. Again, the website is atheniumcomicart.com, and the code is Gutter Gang.
Morning, Gary. Morning, Marianne. Need a menu? Nah, I'll just have the usual. You sure do love your eggs and coffee, Gary. Best way to start your morning, Marianne. Well, that and an issue of Town and County. What's that? Town and County is a new comic series written and drawn by cartoonist Alex Nall. He's that guy that wrote them books about teaching and that Mr. Rogers feller. Oh, he was such a nice man. The first issue is 36 pages of black and white comic stories with beautiful color covers and features 6 stories about folks in our little township here in Illinois. Like Susie Barber, the house cleaner that uncovers her client's dirty laundry, if you know what I mean. And Stanley Pepper, that big feller that just lost his job and took to drinking every night at Bugs's Tavern. Well, ain't that something? Town and County is published by Ivy Terrace Press, headquartered in Chicago. Chicago? Who would want to live there? So dirty. Each issue comes with a copy of the Hometown Hero, our little town's newsletter, and it's only $8. $8? Where can I get it, Gary? You can order a copy of Town and County on the internet at storeenvy/AlexNallComics. Oh, there's your breakfast, Gary. Thanks, Marianne. Nothing like a cup of coffee and a good comic book.
Rust Belt Review is a quarterly comics lit magazine featuring serialized and short-form comics from some of the most exciting cartoonists in the small press scene today. Volume 1 features work from Gutter alums M.S. Harkness, Audra Stang, and Caleb Orecchio, along with work by Andrew Greenstone, Sean Knickerbocker, and Juan Jose Fernandez. You can order your copy of Rust Belt Review today by going to rustbeltreview.org. Enter in promo code GUTTER to receive $2 off your order. Again, that website is rustbeltreview.org, promo code GUTTER.
The Last Aviatrix is a post-nuclear adventure comic by independent, Los Angeles-based cartoonist Buster Cagle. The story follows Summer, our last aviatrix, who pilots the sole-surviving airplane, a nuclear-powered B-29, as she travels the ruined world finding ways to survive and help humanity while dealing with the imminent threat of the Atom-born, a rare breed of atomic wizards that want to see her out of the sky. Her mission becomes complicated when she accidentally picks up Henry, an Atom-born child who wields incredible power, and Clementine, a berserker on a quest for vengeance. Can our aviatrix survive this ruined and irradiated wasteland? Every issue can be read for free on bustercagle.com/comics. Paper copies can be ordered as well, but, you can still read it for free. If you like wizards or warplanes, go check it out.
Now, back to our program.
And welcome back from the break. Today, we are joined by Philadelphia-based cartoonist Connie Myers. Connie is currently about to release a new book with Cram Books, and that is run by a friend of the show, Andrew Alexander. That book is called Big Gamble Rainbow Highway, and you can get that on pre-order now. But before we get into that, and we'll circle back around all that at the end, I do have to ask you, Connie, if the Eagles win the Super Bowl, will Philadelphia be standing or will it burn to the ground in a riot?
So that's really a wonderful question. I'm so happy you are going to ask me that. So I'm from Philly. I was here when the Birds won last in 2018. So there's a really big thing that I feel right now. I was having this conversation the other day with my boyfriend who's from California. And it's like, there's a bunch of people who are not from Philly who live here now in between that last Super Bowl win. So the level of chaos from the last John, which is like them winning the NFC East, them winning the Super Bowl, through the Super Bowl parade, that's a lot of time. And a lot of people coming in. We have a saying in Philly, which is fuck around and find out. So a lot of people are about to fuck around and find out because they realize, or more so they assume that they can do all this bullshit. And then like, bro, this poor Temple kid, he's climbing a pole, he falls down, he cracks his skull, he dies. You know what I mean? If you know you can't do that shit, you can get away with a certain level of dickheadery. But
Sure.
I digress. Whatever happens, it's crazy because like if we win, the city will be fine. If we if we don't win, the city will be fine. But if we do win, it's gonna be chaos. Like I saw like it'll be like 5 different drunk dudes all got Donovan McNabb jerseys on, and then a cop all pissing on a lion, like the last one. So it's like, and that's 2018. There's a lot of new yuppies who moved in who are like really gung-ho about their new Philly personality. So I don't know. Go Birds. If you're a Chiefs fan in 2025, I need you to reevaluate what you're doing. Because that
Oh,
means
totally.
you're a fucking bootlicker, dude. Like really, you're corny. I just don't understand where it's coming from. It's the Eagles versus the refs. And that's how everybody feels. That's how I feel at least.
Yeah, I don't really have a stake in the game, but I hate the Chiefs just because I
Let's
don't
fucking
like.
go.
I will say this is like dating me a bit. I was like 9 or 10 years old when the Lakers won the NBA championship out in LA in the year 2000, and everybody rioted. Like we couldn't go
Yeah.
outside because there was like shit on fire 2 blocks away. And it's insane that the rioting happens when you win as opposed to losing.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. No, absolutely. And the thing is too is when they lost the 2023 Super Bowl, me and all my friends still went into town. There were people still in town like trying to climb the poles and shit, but it's like sad. It's like we're trying to get something going, but like we're more
They
so
want to
Right.
fall off the pole.
yeah. It's
Yeah.
there's this sense of like when the game was over and like they know 24 hours in advance what's people know what's going to go down. So they put all the barricades up, they grease the poles. The cops all watch. Like it's kind of this crazy environment where like it's chaos, but it's controlled chaos where they'll like make an example out of you, but they'll let you do whatever. Like you can smash a fucking whole bottle of Don Julio on the street and they won't say anything. But if you are climbing a pole and you're like everyone's really like clapping about it, then they will arrest you when you come down. They'll let you go in the precinct like later on, but it's I don't know. I don't know what our thing is. We're not lovers of peace, even though we are a city of brotherly love. I don't know. I heard something today earlier that we're just another like blue collar cold city who loves sandwiches. So it's
Hell
like,
yeah.
what else do you have to really be happy about? You know what I mean? It kind of dictates the entire mood of everyone around, which is insane. It's just like this pent up aggression. I think that it's like it comes out in this way after like being let down so many times. Billy loves a choker, so when we do win, it's like, fuck it, man. Your wife's getting a new coat. You know, take your kids out of school. We're gonna go smash a car with a Cowboys bumper sticker on it. You know, it's
Hell
like
yeah.
we're just hype. We have something to be hype about now.
So
Yeah.
I promise we'll get into comics, but I do have one more thing about the Eagles.
No, I
past.
love talking. I'm
Yeah.
really happy to talk about it. Trust me, because there are a lot of like Philly cartoonists who are living here now, and they're not from Philly, but they are adopting slowly the Philly personality, aka my wonderful friend Caroline Cash.
Hell
She
yeah,
is.
shout out.
She's shout out to my girl. She's low key becoming a Philly bird. And I'm seeing it behind her eyes. You know what I mean? It's a
Okay.
slow transition. So I'm happy to talk about it. There's not many people you can talk about it with.
Yeah. Well, so have you been to an Eagles game, I'm assuming?
No, and that's the
No.
crazy
Okay.
thing. You could go in like 2013 when tickets would be like $8 when like the Eagles were ass.
Mhm.
I've been to a million Phillies games, but it's just never something that like I've been to Eagles tailgates. Like I've drunk
Oh,
in the
hell yeah.
lake parking lot and then like gone to like fucking patio acts or whatever and just sat outside. You know what I mean? I've always wanted to. It would be crazy nowadays if you want to get a ticket to the Eagles because they're doing so good. It's like cost you like $4. It's crazy.
Jesus. See,
Yes.
the reason why I was asking is I heard that there is a jail cell inside the Eagles Stadium
Yes.
for unruly fans.
Yes, there is.
I wanted
There-
Like a
confirmation.
dedicated jail?
yes.
Yeah,
yes.
like people act up so bad at Phillies games.
Yes.
They have a jail inside the stadium.
underneath the
God
stadium,
damn.
right? Because people be
Respect.
straight up, and there. I don't know if you saw this crazy video of like this dude. I don't know who they were playing. It might have been. Oh, was it the Packers? I think so. Whatever. This guy was like calling this like girl a cunt. He was an Eagles fan. Excuse my French. Whatever I say, cunt.
No, you can curse. It's all good.
Yeah, it's what you know what I mean. Anyways, he deserved to go to Eagles prison. There is a jail cell under there. People be crazy. You know what I mean? We need to bring back streaking though. Not that I appreciate like I've become very anti-porn in 2025, but I do appreciate a good wholesome streak. That's where they'll go, Eagles prison. I heard that there's also like a judge under there. I heard there's
Oh,
like a full.
wow. They're
I heard
handling
there's
the cases.
yeah, there's like a full like they like take the case like right then and there. No, I swear to God, and I might be susceptible to propaganda. Who knows? But I
No, I
think
mean,
that
I
What
believe
the
it.
fuck?
they're
So I don't know if you
100%.
know this, JB, but I was going to ask if you saw this as well. Apparently, if you roll into the Eagles Stadium in the other team's jersey, Eagles fans will bring in C and D size batteries and pelt you in the head with them.
That's so sick.
Yeah. So I've heard it's wild in there. So I just wanted to see what you possibly
God
saw in
damn.
there. But yeah,
Fucking
so
mega city. Like, that's crazy.
Dude, it is crazy. I'm like, I have to say that I'm guilty because I was like driving by in the car the other day when they were playing the Commanders, and it's like this like dad and like his wife and like his like son. He's like 5 years old, and they all got on Commanders jerseys. I rolled down the window like, "Boo, you suck." It's like fucking 5 years old. It's like his became a Commanders fan like last year, dude. He just gained consciousness and shit.
he doesn't even remember the racist name.
No, he doesn't. No, he doesn't even know what's going on, dude. He's like, "Fuck yeah, Jay Daniels, let's go." My dad likes this. Meanwhile, there's some like fucking drunk white girl like screaming at me at like 11 in the morning from her fucking I don't know boyfriend's Honda Civic. So it's like, what's going on, dude? I don't know. I'm very proud of being a dickhead city. We're very much pieces of shit.
See,
It's a beautiful thing.
this already rocks because every other Philly cartoonist, all they talk about is partners and sons. So we're already in uncharted territory here. So this
Oh,
is
dude. Well, shout out to my I like to consider them my godparents.
Oh yeah, it seems
And
like an amazing place that I need
oh,
to check out.
truly.
So
I'm like, yeah, move out the way, bro. I'm about to be partner's son and daughter because I'm trying to get in. They are the best. If my dad was calm, I would not be like this. I would be way more. I would be way more normal. I'd be way more well adjusted. They're so awesome. I was just talking to Gina about a little exhibition that's going to be going on in Philly that I'll be a part of in the summer. It's going to be really cool. There's definitely going to be, it's me and two other people. So keep your eyes out for that. It's going to be super sick, actually. And someone who is in it has been really coming up recently, made an amazing book, probably made almost every single best comic of 2024 list. So I'm so honored right now. They're just putting on so much good shit. They care so much about the city. I truly think that their business model is make no money whatsoever. So it's great. You can never go wrong with that. You know what I mean? They're just fucking they'll take whatever you got and they're so happy to, you know what I mean, hear from you. You know, I see what's going on with you. First people that I saw when in the summertime after I had like kind of taken a step back from comics, and Gina, my beautiful comic mother, just gave me a wonderful hug. She's just great. I have enough to say about them regardless.
yeah, it
And then
seems
New
like
York
a,
transplants, right?
Yeah. Aren't we? Aren't they all, man? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They are. They
No,
are
I mean,
though.
I think that's great. Like,
Yeah.
they're
My
clearly
girl Gina,
acclimated.
she's a real Southern belle though. Put some respect on my girl she's
Oh.
from Texas. So
Oh, hell yeah. Okay.
if you really talk to her sometimes and you're crushing a few hams with her, you know what I mean? She'll bust out that beautiful drawl. It's a wonderful
great.
thing. I know. Oh, it's great. Ripping a cigarette with Gina in front of partners and son. Oh, I'm so lucky. Lucky woman.
the
am I.
ultimate cartoonist experience.
Oh, dude. Oh, dude. I would take that over anything. I don't even care. I've lived. So
Yeah, they do seem to be the sort of center of the Philly small press scene right now.
The hub.
I mean,
The hub, for
absolutely.
sure.
You can count. I mean, how many comic book stores are there in Philly right now? To be realistic, it's lucky that Fat Jack's closed, obviously. Which
Oh, it did. Wow. I've
yeah,
never been, but I'd heard of it. Yeah. Okay. That's the
That's-
comic crypt, right? Fat Jack's comic crypt or
yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
That's been around for a really, really long time. Super big staple in Philly comics for sure. We still have Atomic City Comics. There's a bull on 12th and Market who's like a little poppy store guy who sells like the cigarettes and shit. He sells There's a dude who sells comics on the street. That's pretty cool. He just sells like DC and Marvel comics, some Image comics as well. But other than that, our comic stores are very few and far between.
Wait
you
a
can-
minute. So you said he sells them on the street, so it's like a bodega that actually
Yeah,
sells.
it's like yeah, and he only sells comics. Isn't that sick?
Wow. Yeah, that's interesting. I wonder. I'm sure he's ordering from like the normal suppliers, but yeah, hell yeah.
Yeah, right. I don't even know because I see him all the time, and I'm always like, wow, that's so fucking sick. If you're ever in Philadelphia, just walk down 12th and Market, and there's like this short old white man who's just got like wall to wall. You know what I'm talking about when you're like on the street, like any major city, and it's just like cigarettes, lottos, soda, whatever. But this bowl is just like all comics, and I always think that guy's super sick. But literally, other than Atomic City Comics, Partners and Sons, there's definitely other ones. But I feel in the past 3 years, almost 2 or 3 comic book stores have closed. Correct me if I'm wrong, though.
Oh, I wouldn't know. You're the boots on the ground reporter here.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you're right. What am I fucking talking about?
To me, only Partners and Sons
Exists.
Yeah.
I mean, they're the only ones selling indie and underground comics. That's for sure. The only one.
Yeah.
Besides, like, there are a few different, like, there's Molly's books on 9th Street. They sell, that's where I read, they had, like, the Dalles, like, the Charles Burns French copies, like, and
Oh,
it's so,
right.
yeah, they'll just have, like, random shit, but, like, in terms of, like, contemporary indie and underground comics, that's it. And aren't we lucky that it's them? You know what I mean? Like, I'll take what I can get because my bowl is pretty full.
For sure.
Yeah, we can talk about comics now, I guess. All right, so you've been making comics for a good chunk of time now at this point.
Yeah,
You started pretty young.
I did.
So let's talk about how you got into doing this in the first place. What drew you, no pun intended, into comics?
You know that like Scholastic book Amulet? I don't know. It's oh my god. And I talked about this with Caroline Cash actually recently.
It was like a title called Amulet? Like that
yeah,
was
it's
the book
called
title?
Amulet. It's like a YA like graphic novel called Amulet.
Oh, okay.
That was the first. My dad used to give me Mad Magazine clippings that he had because he had like a bunch
Very
cut up
nice.
from when he was a kid. He had like this old like Napoleon, like Albert E. Newman like poster that he would always like show me pictures of, which was like crazy. My dad's really old. He's like super old. When I was born, he was like 40 something, whatever. So that made me super maladjusted. Regardless, I started making.
We can go stack for stack because my dad's pretty old too.
All right, fair enough.
My dad had me out of high school, so I'm out.
Damn.
Oh yeah. Your dad's young as shit.
Your
Yeah.
dad was just knocking boots, dude. He was like, let's get it. I think that he probably introduced me to the concept of comics. My whole life, though, I was really interested in making cartoons, specifically 2D animated cartoons. I grew up just like disgustingly obsessed with Foster Home for Imaginary Friends and everything that Cartoon Network was putting out between like 2001 to like 2009, which is going to show how old I am. I'm 22. But like most of my life was geared towards, I'm going to make it animations when I'm older. And so I started making like storyboards as early as like 4 or 5. And then I think that like when I hit a certain consciousness around like 8, I was like, oh, I'm making comics. And that's when I was reading like Amulet and like Bone and all kinds of shit. Like also there's to be said about young girls like graphic novels like My Dear Dumb Diary and shit. Like that shit was pure comics. To be honest, this is tapping into again a certain age group and probably for young girls, but not that they're specifically gendered because they're funny and sometimes pretty raunchy. I wish that I could name more off the top of my head, but My Dear Dumb Diary is definitely the one that is like popping off my top of my head. But what do you think? Do you think that like Diary of a Wimpy Kid is a comic, essentially?
Technically, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to go by
yeah.
the technical definition, but I think that if it offers as a gateway
Yeah.
to comics, I would say it definitely has its foot in the door. Now, let me ask you a question though. Where were you just seeing this stuff at a regular bookstore or
Oh yeah.
So you just gravitated towards it naturally?
Yeah, I went to Catholic school my whole life. So I wasn't even being introduced to these things like in my local library. Like the most insane thing that we would have is like Goosebumps. And that was even still like pretty whoa. Like we have Goosebumps? Like that's crazy. You know what I mean? What I was allowed to consume was pretty strict in school, but I had unbridled internet access as a child. So I was taken to the library a lot as a kid. So my introduction to comics definitely started from going to the library and from the internet and like what the internet could provide. Like I remember when I read Blankets for the first time at the library, like that shit was insane. I was like 12 or 13, which
Oh yeah.
shout out that dude. Apparently he's like 6'4".
Craig Thompson is 6'4"?
Yeah, apparently.
Wow. Okay.
Well, I don't know, quote me on that. I heard he's huge.
Yeah.
Anyways, I would say though that I got seriously into the idea of being a cartoonist though when I was like a freshman in high school. That's when everybody goes through the rounds of going on the internet and seeing Crumb. I didn't watch the Crumb documentary until way later. I was just introduced to, I remember the first thing I ever bought on Amazon was one of my Crumb sketchbooks, which is like, I think like the second one.
Well, let's back up there. So it's like a thing, like people like was this like a thing amongst young people of your generation? They like the movie Crumb went kind of viral in the community?
No, no, no,
Oh,
no,
okay.
not at all. In fact, no. Nate actually showed me the Crumb documentary for the first
I
time. I'd
gotcha.
never seen it.
Okay.
But I had known of Crumb and had been obsessed with Crumb. I was obsessed with Barry Windsor Smith. I got very deep into, I was very much a Tumblr kid. I loved Tumblr growing up. I understood, I was like, fuck yeah, let's go Homestuck. That shit was lit. But I think around 14, 15 is when I was starting to understand comics as really like what they could be. You know what I mean? I just read Blankets. I was getting into Crumb. I read Monsters. There was just this shift, I think, from seeing Crumb for the first time that was, it was just like mind breaking. You know what I mean? And I know I'm not alone in saying that. I'm not the first person to say that, obviously, but there was just something to be said also about being a girl. I was like, oh, that's sick. Like, there's he's drawing these huge fucking women. They're so awesome. And like, they're just towering over him and this beautiful cross hatching. And like, especially me going to Catholic school, even further, like getting into like Justin Green and all shit. That's like way later on for me. But I would say like the young adult like graphic novels that Scholastic would sell transitioned me from like my small internet searching into Crumb when I was like 14 or 15, and that was just like bam, like this is what I want to do, and I love doing it. I started making like some of my first comics heavy in eighth grade to most of high school about a variety of things. Like I was really into making like Western comics and like comics about indigenous people and like abstract kind of romance comics as well about like peach cans and like all kinds of like crazy shit. But I would say it's like when I got later on, like 17, 18, like 16, 17, 18 is when I started to like find about like Trina Robbins and shit and like Mary Fleener and Doris Seda, and so it was Crumb basically, which is kind of embarrassing.
Well,
I won't lie.
I will say this, and I think it's so interesting because I feel like all of those cartoons you just named, that early San Francisco scene from the 60s, that's definitely in the DNA of your work, but you've definitely surpassed it with more modern sensibilities. And I think that it's just, to me, it's very interesting, given your age. I hate to sound like such an old man here, but
No,
that you found that stuff and found so much influence in it because it really is kind of the foundation of what we do as independent cartoonists. So, I mean, you can definitely tell that's a huge influence on you. I don't think you should feel embarrassed. I mean, if anything, I feel like a woman speaking on Crumb is way more qualified to have anything to say as opposed to a man defending Crumb. So if you want to
no,
let Crumb go
absolutely.
off.
No, truly. And I one time had an ex-boyfriend was saying, it was like, you've let Crumb ruin your life. Now you have crazy ideas of masculinity, femininity. And I was like, yeah, I guess so. That's kind of true. I do kind of want you to ride on my back with a saddle and shit. So
People have come to
I
that conclusion recently without Crumb, I think. I think that's just
yeah,
a
no,
section of people now.
100%.
So.
Yeah, literally. I think that Crumb provides. I always think of this one. Have you ever seen that interview with Crumb? And he's like in Sweden, and the Swedish guy's like talking about when he read the family comic for the first time, when it's like the mom's like fucking the son or whatever, and he's like, and that was very crazy for me to see as like a young Swedish man. I had never seen anything like that before, and it opened my mind. And Crumb was like, yeah, like I bet it fucking did. And that's kind of how I felt. It was like, yeah, I bet it fucking did. You're a Catholic schoolgirl, and now you're seeing this scrawny man like talk about like fucking, you know what I mean? It's just, there's something to be said about his impact. But then, like at this point in time, I think Dory Sada is a significantly better cartoonist.
It's
Crumb.
so sad that we didn't get more work from Doris Sada.
I know. Rest in peace. Shout out to my
Yeah.
girl. Honestly.
Yeah, big RIP. Yeah, I've got a couple of her books
100%.
and love that shit. It's awesome.
I know, 100%. But I will give my props to Crumb. I wouldn't have done it for him, and really wouldn't have realize what I could do without him. He made me appreciate the beauty in rendering something also, which is kind of vague, but like he unlocked my brain, and I'm glad that I was able to have that foundation like that early, even if whether or not it was healthy or not, it impacted me positively for sure, and the work that I continue to make.
One thing I do want to get into, you mentioned your influences there, but you did kind of mention you wanted to do animation recently. Is that something that you're still interested in? I feel like there's a lot of cartoonists that hold down day jobs in animation, and I also feel like sometimes there's a line in the sand where it's like, oh, we're cartoonists, oh, we're animators. Do you have a desire to do any kind of animation or anything like that again, or are you fully in comics now?
Well, that's a really good question because I didn't go to art school, I didn't go to college, but I was going to.
Yeah,
I
you made the
graduated.
right call, loan
Yeah,
wise, and you
thank
seem to be
you.
doing fine without it.
Literally, I also was going for animation to Philadelphia's University Arts, which I don't know if you know, but had just closed bankruptcy earlier this spring, which would have been the year that I graduated.
Oh wow.
So if I had continued with it, so it was just like even further like, lol, like you weren't gonna do that shit. I love animation. However, the time it takes to make, like I remember sitting there because I went for a week. I graduated high school in 2020, so I had to go do like online college for like a month, and then I dropped out. I didn't even last a month. I still have like a loan from it. Whatever. I digress. It was sitting there doing the ball animation, and I have made storyboards upon storyboards. Like I swear, I don't even know how I passed like any class because I was just drawing all the time. I don't think that I could do it because the amount of labor that you could put into a 30-second animation, you could make a beautiful comic, absolutely beautiful comic that it is just exploding off of the page. I also have a way bigger respect for paper now than I did probably in high school when this was like, or even my whole life, because I truly did believe I was going to be an animator up until I turned 18, like 17, 18. It's just not something that I care so much to do. I still make like occasional like little flip books, but in my comics, I find that I always am playing with transparency, especially the comic that I just finished, Big Gamble, which is has a lot of panels that if I just sat down and like maybe did them on individual pages that they would animate. I think that there's a beauty to the two kind of being together, but in this point in time, I take everything that I would want to do in animation and put it 100% into comics because I just think that it takes so much more time at what cost. But then again, it's like, you know what I mean? It's like Ralph Bakshi. It's like that shit's fucking beautiful. That's enough to make a grown man cry. Both things are two mediums that can transcend language. The amount of effort and painstaking like analness is just way more satisfying in a comic. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I'm just kind of talking, from I'm assuming here, but has a lot of the animation studios have they like kind of adapted AI into moving drawings? Like I'm assuming that's right around the corner if they're not already doing that. I don't know if either of you all know anything about that.
Dude, absolutely. It's like I hate seeing that shit also.
Yeah,
And why
it's so
wouldn't you?
disheartening.
It's so disheartening. And if you were an animation studio, like, why wouldn't you be doing that? And not that, like, obviously you're going to pay, if you have a good nature to your craft and if you respect the medium, you're going to understand what it takes to go into painstakingly drawing, panel by panel. I didn't even want to do digital animation. Like, I'm just so fun. I'm technologically challenged. Truly, I believe that. So even if I did continue down the path, I'm like, would I have even gotten that far? I probably would have just based on like being so addicted to making something and being in love with what I'm doing at the moment because that's how I try to be. But I think that it gets lost along the way and AI is definitely gonna like push that further. Why would you even need it? We'll just cut a fucking corner, man. We'll just make a robot do that in between
Right.
panel. I don't need.
Yeah, and I think that, like you said, like I guess from a business standpoint, of course they're going to do it. But
Yeah.
and you've actually kind of seen AI kind of seep into comics, but as of right now you can always tell. Like
Oh my god, it's so ugly.
yeah,
It's so
yeah.
ugly.
So,
I don't know if you go on Tumblr recently, but like if you go on Tumblr and you go down like the underground comics tag, you'll get like a new AI comic. And it's like It's so bizarre. It looks like the Newgrounds like meet and fuck games, but like now. It's like if you made that shit now and they're like always in the woods for some reason. It's so ugly. Ew, I hate it so much.
I feel
But
like
it's taken over.
they're probably in the woods because like it's less obvious to tell a bunch of like foliage in the background as opposed to like a fucked up ass cityscape or something. I just assume
Oh,
that it's
true.
not good enough
That's
yet for
so
that is what I'm
true.
assuming. No, so is Tumblr popping again? Because everybody's kind of like wanting to leave Meta and everybody's wanting to leave, all this stuff. And I understand I'm not faulting anybody for doing that, but it seems like social media
No,
has become more and more fragmented,
no,
as the days
absolutely.
pass.
I 100% agree with that. I'm going to quickly shout out a cartoonist that I love, Matthew Thurber. I don't know if he knows who I am or cares about me whatsoever. I have every copy right now of Looking for the Cat. It's great. You should go get it and read it. It's awesome. He posted the other day on his Instagram.com about like what Instagram has to do with comics. You know what I mean? Like we're so reliant on devices for communication and that we've forgotten about how to communicate without like this third party middleman. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? That there is something beautiful though about like the early internet, about like internet forums and like comics like Tumblr. Like I don't know if Tumblr is going to have this resurgence or if any really social media or website should for that matter. I think that it's just something that I feel like people need to agree upon. We for somehow like agreed upon this easiness, like how we've agreed upon a lot of the, I'm going to reference myself, but like the cutting corners of life. Like we don't really have to wait for anything. We can see the comics we want to read right now, like on our phones. You can post slides of your comic panels. You know what I mean? You're able to get an idea of what something is rather than, you know, going on a mailing list or having to go to a comic book store or which is difficult. You know what I mean? It's a lot easier now to find out about someone who's in a whole other country. You know what I mean? But in terms of our relationship with social media and comics, I just think that it's a medium that has like existed successfully without it previously, and I think that comics can have another beautiful resurgence if we can agree that it's not necessary. Does that make sense? I think that whatever people decide to do, I use Tumblr as a means of archiving. I think that archiving art is very important. I love being able to read like my favorite, I don't know, Mark Baer comics. Like I can't fucking get a copy of it, but it's like the hardcover is like $300 fucking dollars of, you know what I mean, agony. And it's just, I think that once we understand how the internet services our work, then we'll be able to understand how we can then distance our art and ourselves from it and our comic communities. Because to be frank, it's hurting us as individuals and as creatives. I think that people are being influenced and I don't know. It's a lot, especially like right now. It's so overwhelming in this moment. I think that it's important to have free comics. Like I hope that when I die, all my comics get to go on the internet. You can read them all for free.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? I just don't know if we'll be able to back away from it because it's just so addictive. Like I said, I have a Tumblr because I think that it's awesome to be able to look at art as, you know, I mean, it's like a website, really,
Sure.
portfolio, if you will. Instagram is fun because it's like the live updates of a person that you're interested in their work and who they are as an individual. But there's much to be said about that. But shout out my boy Matthew Thurber because he had something very interesting to say about the topic. And I wonder if that we will be able to, you know what I mean, see that we're not relying on these things, that we can communicate and create and share what we do create without a middleman of a device or a website.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, I think social media has always been a means to an end for a lot of creators.
Yeah.
So I mean, it makes sense the kind of the direction that things have gone and how people are responding to that. I think the nice thing about, in particular, like small press in general, there isn't an over reliance on social media the way, say, if you were to be working for the big two,
Yeah.
because
That's so true.
these audiences are generally pretty localized. They're smaller, obviously. It's nice to be able to like reach a wider audience and reach people that maybe you wouldn't have reached otherwise because of social media or because of the internet or whatever. But I don't think we need social media specifically for that. I mean, I think Silver Sprocket is a great example of just like how distribution is changing now in small press.
Yeah.
And so now people have like a much wider access to work that they otherwise would not have been able to get a hold of. Because even at the end of the day, there's a certain element of like esoteric qualities to finding a new artist you've never heard of or a creator you've never heard of on social media. And that's always been the
Oh,
case, but
totally.
it's like it's becoming more and more now, due to, these fucking tech companies not being interested in that. They're interested in selling advertisers.
Yeah.
So
Right. It's like falling off at the thing that it was great at from the jump. Why I think a lot of
yes.
people were able.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And I think it's because those original inventors of these platforms and they just sold out, and that's fine. Like some big tech company swooped in, they're like, we're going to give you $1 billion for this. And who says no to
Yeah.
that?
Right.
Yeah.
So the original vision of these things is lost.
Well, I mean, also, like, this is something that I think a lot of people kind of forget. It's like the biggest tech giants out there right now, which is Twitter and Facebook, or sorry, Instagram. Only fucking boomers use Facebook. Like, Facebook is not a thing anymore.
Right, yeah.
Instagram and Twitter. Twitter was bought out. Instagram was bought out pretty early on. And Facebook, or Meta rather, have not actually created anything other than Facebook in the last 15, 20 years.
Right.
They
Yeah.
tried-
That's so true.
Bought what
They
was
tried
popping.
Meta, the Meta universe, or whatever the fuck that stupid bullshit was, and it just like ate shit. They sunk like billions of dollars. That just did nothing
Yeah.
at all. No motion whatsoever.
You got no motion.
No, zero motion. And now X is just hemorrhaging money.
Which is
So-
awesome because fuck Elon
No, it's
Musk.
great.
I love seeing him just like I love seeing
Oh,
his,
yeah.
like, money just
Yeah.
burn.
No, it's very
Dude,
sick.
he's
And
the
then
worst.
fucking this new AI program that China put out that's just like basically revealing the fraud and scam that is big tech. This is all great. Like, I hope more and more people
It
are like
is.
opening their eyes to the fact that like all of this is just bullshit. Like, it is
I
totally,
agree.
it's pump and dump nonsense.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's something beautiful in the mass realization, as dark as it is. It's like that's really dramatic and hippie to say, but it's like taking your blindfold off. You're like, oh fuck, this was actually horrible from the jump. But I wonder what can be done from this at this point. You know what I mean? Like, I think that the problem with this ideal society that I'm thinking of, rather, for comics, which is like mail order comics, they're way more accessible. Your local comic book store is supplying comics from internationally. They have all kinds of artists. I think that capitalism is really just the killer of this because, you know what I mean? In order to self-publish, you need a certain amount of money. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You need to
Oh,
have
yeah,
a stable day job. So if people aren't able to print, how are they able to get their work in stores or get it seen by the masses without this kind of like tidbit, which is social media, which is
Right.
someone saying, this is my work. Do you like how this looks? Do you want to send me $12 on Big Cartel and I can ship it to you in USPS in
Yeah.
like a week and a half? You know what I mean? I wonder if there will be some kind of shift that comes from this that we can see like socially, but within our specific realm, which is comics. I have a lot of hope for it. Truly. I think that if we are able to kind of get off a certain high horse and start looking at comics, a different print quality as well, we'll be able to see cartoonists who maybe haven't had this kind of scope socially on the internet that, you know what I mean, are getting a different opportunity now. This kind of sounds all roundabout, but I have this idea in my head where we could live in a world where we don't have social media, but comics are still being circulated, new comics and new cartoonists. You know what I mean? Without having to put themselves out there, put their face out there, make something catchy and flashy and like a 30-second reel.
Right.
You know?
Well, I mean, I think the beauty about comics is that social media could end tomorrow and comics
Yeah.
wouldn't go anywhere. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true.
Like, that's not changing anytime soon.
Absolutely.
The only thing about like right now with social media is that you're able to reach more people that are maybe like casually reading comics or are not as plugged in about comics. So like obviously, yeah, like that's a good thing. But I don't think there needs to be a dependence on that. And I think there's actually a way to circumvent that problem entirely.
Well, this is actually interesting you bring this up because I do feel like, your work, Connie, you post like pieces of it online, you do this thing where you only have books available in a certain city because they're only available at local shops, or, you have books that don't even get sold online because you're doing them at like, street vendor fairs and everything.
Yeah.
So I did want to ask about that because like, is that a sustainable model for you, keeping that stuff offline? Because obviously, now that you're talking about it, it's the vision that you see for yourself and, how you want your comics consumed, not off the grid, but you get what I'm saying. Like they have a means to exist outside of being promoted on social media. Is that a viable solution for cartoonists? Like, have you found luck in that, and anything that you want to say about that?
Sure. I mean, financially, there's no viable success.
Sure.
But I don't think that any cartoonist ever thinks about money. And if you're a cartoonist who's thinking about money, I think that you should get into a different profession, or rather, just don't think about that. How lame is that? Up until like maybe 2 weeks ago, I didn't want to have to sell my comics on the internet. I wholly believe in the power of setting up a table and going to Rainhouse Park, which is a huge park in Center City, Philadelphia, where a bunch of yuppies live, and just selling comics. That does limit who's able to consume my comics, and I'm not happy about that, unfortunately. But there's something to be said about making an impact on someone that then it goes beyond word of mouth. You know what I mean? I've had like people that I've met. For example, like one time I was going up to New York and I was going outside, Search and Destroy just made this zine, and there was these two crust punk dudes, and I gave him a zine, just like fucking around, like shooting the shit with them. He's like, I have body lice, and I was like, all right, cool. Do you want like a zine? And I come back like a year later, and this dude, I see him, and I'm like, yo, do you remember me? And he goes, yeah, I remember you, and then quotes something that I had written in my comic. And there's just something, it really like broke my brain about how comics can be like how they were pre 1990. You know what I mean? There's something to be said about just going to your local store, putting these comics on the street, selling them literally on the street. I mean, like trash bag on the ground, put them on the trash bag. Standing up. I like to sing a song. You know what I mean? I can do a little dance, get people's attention. I have this spiel where it's like, when's the last time you read a book? I bet you don't even know how to read. This one's got pictures. I bet you want to look at the pictures, don't you? I think that's
fucking
important.
silly as shit.
Thank you. I mean, it gets people over there because they're kind of like, fuck you, asshole. What are you talking about? I don't know how to read. And so they're coming over here and they're looking at comics. I think that everyone can do that. I think that a lot of cartoonists, I mean, to be frank, comics is the most isolating and personal act of self masturbation you could possibly ever do. So to put it in that way where you're selling them almost like a car salesman, it's foreign and it's a little bit uncomfortable, but it's beautiful. If I think that that would be sustainable, I would do it forever. And I have been doing that, especially all summer long when it's been warm out. I've been taking the opportunity to just continue. I like to bring a lot of my comics with me where I go and sell them, give them out to people, talk about comics with them. I think that every cartoonist can do that if they're able, not even like you have to, advocate for your work, but believe in the power of sharing your comics, whether or not be that you believe in yourself, but believe in comics as a healing medium. They are so beautiful and I love them so much, and they can save you. And they also transcend language and class, and everyone can make one, and they're basically free to make. You can make it with essentially nothing. So to put them in that kind of place where anyone can consume them, especially a non-comic reader who sees me on the street, who's basically yelling at their face, calling them an idiot, like, read my fucking comic, that can kind of change their mindset about what a comic is. Then they have someone over their apartment that they're seeing on Tinder, and they're like, what's this book on your table? Oh, it's like a comic book I got from this crazy girl on the street. And that's powerful enough. I think that maybe I am proving my own point, that it's like, we don't need these things because we didn't need them before. There's a cartoonist I know right now. Her name is Josephine. I think it's like Puppet Cereal on Instagram. She's been teetering back and forth about removing herself from social media, even though her work is wonderful. But just the idea of doing mail art and mail-in comics again, kind of circulating what this can mean for people who want to distance themselves from social media, don't know anything about comics. They sign themselves up for something, like, you know what I mean? But like I said, capitalism is the killer of this. I'm not going to be able to go out in the street and sell, because I'll even like give out comics to someone if they're hesitant, just because I believe in them so much. I believe in what they can do, but you can't do that if you're not having sustainable income and you know what I mean. I pay rent, all this shit, but they're important enough to me that I think that selling them on the street is even more powerful than on the internet, because they'll get there when they get there. You know what I mean? I went to San Francisco earlier in the summer, and shout out Floyd Tangeman. He's so awesome. He come up with this and pioneered a bunch of New York young cartoonists to do world comics, which is you basically just set up your table wherever, and it's welcome to World Comics. Where in the hell in the world are you from? And you can just have your own comic book store wherever you like, as long as the cops don't shut you down.
Hmm.
At least that's what I have to say on the topic.
Yeah. So have you had cops like try to shut you down for illegal vending or whatever?
I haven't. That's because I've had friends who have had that problem. You just gotta be slick. Like, you just gotta be slick about it for sure. Don't be too crazy. In New York, they definitely have a bigger problem with it than like Philly, because you can kind of do whatever you want in Philly. To be honest, they have way bigger problems than some white girl selling her comics on a trash bag. You know what I mean? So, but it's definitely, there is something to be said about like, yeah, people do have a problem with you, like just kind of setting up and doing whatever. But it's paper media. You know what I mean? You can just pick it all up and put it in your fucking knapsack and run down the street. You know what I mean? As long as you got some rocks to keep them down when the wind blows.
So do you feel that, because I do feel like this is a way to make a connection, a genuine connection with your audience, and I'm definitely vibing with what you're saying. Do you feel like you would have more success if you were able to, post on social media, hey, I'll be here today? Or do you feel like that takes away from what your, vision is of the distribution of your books?
That's a great point. I think that, at least specifically where I live, I don't need to do that. You can see the same couple of people. Philadelphia is a pretty big small town,
Yeah.
even though it's like
I
the
think we've
fifth
talked to
largest.
every cartoonist there almost
Yeah.
at this point.
I would 100% believe that as well. And if you come to Philly, it's like, yeah, you probably will see them all in one place. You could fit them all in one room as well. There is definitely something helpful. I've done in the past where I've done like some figure drawings as well as comics and said, I'm going to be here, pull up. That definitely does help. However, I believe in like this purity of just like being there at a place and a time, and people consuming your comics like not knowing who you are, or you know what I mean? There's something nice about just like being there. However, it doesn't hurt to want people to come and find you. But however, I don't like the internet. I'm very fearful of the internet.
Sure.
I don't trust the internet. I don't really want anyone to know where I am at any point in time. I get very scared when people say my name in public. So I don't try to like elude people to know my location based off of like me not telling them directly. Like, I don't
gotcha.
like putting, you know what I mean? I just now had to start selling comics on the internet purely because I do want people to have this, my most recent zine that I made before I stopped printing it altogether. I want to give people kind of an opportunity. Not that I don't believe in long print runs, but I kind of just don't believe in long print runs. I want to just keep making the next thing. So it's almost me kind of like pushing it onto people before I then wrap it all up in a nice bow and I move on to the next thing. And if they got it, they got it. And if they don't, they don't. And maybe that's more special to them.
Are you
You know what I
opposed
mean?
to collecting that in like a book down the line?
I would love to. Actually, I've had like in my dreams, I see what my book looks like, where it's every comic I've ever made from like even in high school up until now. Like, obviously with a kind of refined editing, but they will be collected in due time. I don't know how long until that point, but I want it to be thick. And when it does happen, I think it'll be really interesting to look at. I think that I can change a lot in my style, the kind of comics that I make stylistically, and the different kind of narration I do through comics. To put them all in one place would be, it would feel like kind of a, I don't know, like a Gundam style, like weird mashup of parts. But altogether, I guess it would be me. It's definitely going to come down the line. I would say probably like by the end of this year, maybe like 2 years from now. I'm working on a comic right now that is going to have like a physical aspect to it. And it's going to be kind of meta. It's going to be about puppets. And I'm going to be making a puppet show that will be the puppet show that takes place in the comic. So that's what I'm currently working on, which isn't something that's going to translate well across. That's going to be like one thing that you can see at one
Right.
time.
Yeah, yeah.
But in terms of like all my comics in one place, it will happen. I don't know when though, but I think the book will be read. That's how I feel.
I mean, that's a good segue into my next question, which is how your style and your approach to making comics has changed as you've made more. So
Oh yeah, I mean,
yeah, go ahead.
no. What were you gonna say? I mean, I totally just made a comic that was unlike anything I've ever made before. So it's insane, but I can change a lot. It's not hard for me to flip around what I'm doing. For example, like the comic I just made, I didn't pencil it at all. There was nothing in the comic that was penciled whatsoever.
Yeah.
And the book that I'm doing with beloved Andy and Cram, it's was like I did every panel. I would basically just sit down, make a piece of paper, draw a bunch of squares with Sharpie, and then each panel I had no idea what was going to happen next. And I did that for about 6 months.
Okay.
And I've never made a comic like that before. I usually am working on one comic for like half a year. And I'm taking like a 0.003 for like 2 weeks to like one page.
Right.
And just
right.
refining the fuck out of it. I'll make papers and papers and papers of just completely rehashing scripts over and over. But it gets boring if you don't switch it up every once in
Sure,
a while.
sure.
You'll fall out of love with what you're doing. You know
Yeah,
what I
no,
mean?
absolutely. Well, I mean, your style, I think there's like a visible, like clear growth in your work in the last few years.
Thank you.
So I guess I wanted to talk specifically about how it's changed, or at least from your perspective, how it's changed. Because, early on, at least from what I saw, a lot of it was like very heavily rendered pencils and inks, like very delicate, fine line work. And now I see a lot more like mixed media approaches to your pages. So how did those changes like happen? I know we were talking about mixing it up and changing things up, but what made you decide to make those decisions in terms of like how you are, making your work now?
For sure. I mean, it comes from like being influenced by I think at first my peers. There is something so beautiful about perfecting what it is you do. I used to like have dreams about cross hatching. Like I would literally wake up and I would be like, oh my God, I was just like cross hatching the most insane like apple, like while I was sleeping. But at a certain point in time, I think I started just reading so many comics like in the past 2 or 3 years that I just saw this beauty in simplicity and like when less is more. I
Yeah.
still think that there's this beautiful art to sitting down and rendering something just insane heavy pencils and heavy line work. But to find the marriage between the two just makes you a better artist and a better cartoonist. Like, for example, like, I don't know, like Tana Oshima, she's awesome. She's working right now. She's super great. She's got some pretty like simplistic characters. Even like throw it back to like I was just like looking at the comics of like Faye King, like even like 1920s, like beautiful, thin, these like simple lines that can convey so much are just as important and special to me as really heavily rendered images, really descriptive faces and shadows. I don't know at what point that it shifted for me, but I think I just kept reading more and more and starting to love things that I didn't acknowledge before as someone who got into comics with Crumb. Like, for example, someone said that my art was like Milton Knight, and I never even read a Milton Knight comic until after that. And I was like, this shit is fucking awesome. Like, hell yeah, I'm gonna start doing that. And he doesn't even render anything. There's like these beautiful, like thick I started using a lot more black. It's just I think it's like the more you consume, the more you're able to find who you are. I don't know if
Yeah.
I'm even at the point where I'm even satisfied with what it looks like. I think that in the next 2 years, I'll be able to find even a more perfect marriage between the two, where you just kind of do what you feel. I've started to use color more in mixed media more, which I've never done before. I'm very afraid of color. I believe in the power of like black and white. I also just like think about like Frank Miller's colors and like cringe and like think about how everything would just be better in black and white. It's like, why would you even try and do that?
He really did kind of
But
fuck up Sin City by just adding those
bro,
random splotches of colors to characters, I think.
why did he do that?
The only thing I can think of that works was like the yellow guy. Like that's the only
Yes.
Yeah,
one where I was like,
yeah.
okay,
That's the
this
only
was
one.
worth it. Like, but
Yeah.
yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, I'm glad.
You know what I mean? It's like sometimes it's just simple as more. But there are points in time where you're like, fuck yeah, I want to do that. I want to be able to put this color in my work. I want to be able to. And this character that I've crafted for my new book, I've just been tagging her all over. I can draw her in 3 or 4 lines. You know what I mean? There's something beautiful about like just honing in on something so simple to the point that it's like this perfect thing. I don't know if it came just from me like getting sick and tired of what I was doing, but I think I was just happy to do it. I was just like, yeah, I'm getting a little bit bored and tired of this. I want to I just want to see what I could do, basically, and have fun with it. And the most recent comic that I made that I didn't pencil was the most fun I've had in so long. And I was making this comic with the intention of no one seeing it. I started this comic like completely alone. I had no idea anyone was going to see it. I was making it completely for me. It was going to be like 100 pages long. And then Andy was like, this is pretty good. Do you want to print it? And I was like, yeah, man, fuck it. Let's just fucking do it. I'll just wrap it up in a bow. Let's fucking go. So it became that. And I think by me being able to see it then in print, I was like, okay, I can do both of these things. I can now teeter between the two and like start to really become technically the artist that I want to be, if that makes sense. It's kind of a roundabout answer, but I guess more so just peer influence.
No, yeah. I mean, all that makes total sense. And I think your approach to multimedia and how you've integrated all these different elements, like the colors and the line quality and the texture and all that, that just adds to what you've already kind of established in your I don't know, like your vernacular of how you like approach this medium. So it's really interesting to see that develop.
Thank you.
Compared to what was out there, like what I was seeing early on. And I mean,
Yeah.
the work that you were putting out early on was like super strong to begin with, right? Like the rendering and like you said, you were clearly fixated on it. Like it
Yeah.
was definitely a thing, and you could tell. Like it shows on the page. All that rendering is nuts.
Thank you.
And it feels intentional, by the way. Like it feels very intentional. It doesn't feel like you're just doing it for the sake of doing it. Because I feel like that's something I see a lot when people like over render their work. And
Yeah, you got every motherfucker trying to be Moebius or Jeff Darrow, and you can just
Right.
see.
Yeah, you're like, bruh.
Right. It's like clearly readable, and you understand what you're looking at. But it's just like really well done.
Thank you. I always wanted you to be able to feel like you can touch something.
Oh, you can you can touch it. You could smell it. Like, it's very like it is like, very tactile in that way. It's very interesting.
Thank you. That's the highest compliment to me. Honestly, that's all I could want.
So I suppose we should get a little into process. Earlier at the beginning of the interview, you did mention that if you couldn't make comics, like you would make comics rather if you didn't have hands. I'm assuming this is a daily thing for you. Like drawing is just, I don't know if it's compulsory but like, what does that process look like for you as far as like separating ideas into, oh, this needs to be a comic, fleshing out that idea? And do you have like a set schedule for yourself or any kind of techniques or anything like that you try to keep in your practice?
Oh, for sure. I mean, I'm doodling something right now. I don't know if I could like stop if I wanted to. Like, I couldn't even help it. I'm actively listening. I'm trying not to ramble, but I am drawing something to the side. When I'm going into a bigger project, it depends on kind of what I'm trying to do. For example, if I'm being asked to do an anthology work, I will kind of go through. I try to like write down every idea that I have. You know, David Lynch is like, if you'll forget an idea, you want to commit suicide. And that's how I feel. I'm like, dude, if I can't fucking remember this comic idea I had, I'll freak the fuck out. I will absolutely go nutso butso. I sit down, usually in the Parkway Library in Philadelphia is where I get my biggest inspiration. I like to sit down, take a bunch of books out of all different kinds and kind of just flip through, see how I feel. Usually, sometimes it's just something I see. I feel like a lot of my work is definitely influenced by living in Philadelphia. There's a lot of comics directly that I've made just based on events that I've witnessed. or comics I will make in the future based on just where I am, like location wise. My process is pretty simple. It's been perfected as I've met more cartoonists as well. I think the way that I went about it from the beginning was just based off of kind of like having no frame of reference about how to make a comic and kind of like what that would look like. And then as I've met more of my comic peers, I've just been shown about like, making your comic script and how that goes. I think the thing that I think about first is like a joke, like, or something funny or something I want to get across. And then from there, I'm able to push it further. Like, for example, I made this comic for Kayleen and Angeles Fanchi's anthology, Bernadette, where this clown girl like wants to be a pilot, and then like she's thinking about being a pilot, and then she's like on a trapeze, and then she's like, I want to be a pilot, and then she falls from the trapeze. And I just thought it'd be funny if it was like, what if a clown wanted to be a different job, but she had to be a clown? And like that's all I thought about. It just takes one thing I have and like just autistically like ruminating on it over and over and over again. I try to draw every day. If I don't draw every day, I'll feel like very uncomfortable and diseased. I hold my pen wrong. I have a very large callously bump on my right hand because I think that no one ever took the fucking time to teach me how to hold a pencil correctly. So I have this like really large bump because I'm just holding it wrong. I press the pencil really fucking hard. I say though that like my process from start to finish, it starts off hella organized. If I don't do it that way, it can get very chaotic. I'll lose pages. I lost an entire script for a comic I was going to make about horseshoe crabs. It was like 26 pages long. I was so sad about it. It was going to be about like how horseshoe crabs, like their mating process and how they go up to the Delaware River to like mate. It was going to be like spring break horseshoe crabbing, but I lost it. I write all these things down on paper. I don't think that I can make a comic if I wrote it down on my phone. Like when people have like notes apps, like I'll like write something down there, but it has to be written down on a piece of paper in order to begin. And I think that the best way to start a comic, and this is in my opinion, is to start it on a really, really small piece of paper, like kind of like what your base character will look like, or maybe like just different aspects or plot elements you want to implement. That's how I feel. It starts off hella organized, gets completely chaotic. My pages are filthy in person. I take them everywhere. I also carry around my pages to the comic I'm working on everywhere, like to the bar. Like if I like go to a bar, I'll often be at a library or somewhere drawing them beforehand, so I can feel bad about not working on it. Like I'll actively go out of my way to carry them. So I'm like, you're not drawing your comic right now, and you should be. Like, you know what I mean? You should be way more disciplined in this moment. It's something that I could never stop doing, but also something that every time I'm not doing it, I wish I was doing it, which I'm definitely not alone as a cartoonist as saying this. I've heard so many other people feel the same way, whether it's like this nagging, like mental anguish. But yeah, my pages are fucking filthy. I'm constantly doodling something. I used to really, really care about cleanness with my panels, but like I just said, I just started my new comic where it was just taking a Sharpie and literally just making huge Sharpie squares on this like 11 by 14 by like 19 piece of paper, just doing whatever. But they're really polished in my brain before I start. At least that's how I am. I try to make it that way. So when I'm going into it, it's like I'm not scrambling for anything. I know what I'm going to do, and I can just lock in about it.
Hell yeah. So you do work off scripts? Like that is one thing. Like, do you have to work off a script?
I mean, the most recent comic that I made, no script whatsoever. I didn't have any script. I had no idea what was gonna happen. But before that, yeah, because I like it to be the funniest thing I could have said in that moment, or the most like intelligent decision for the timing, like comedically or just story wise. I think scripts just like sometimes they do kill the fun out of what it is that you're doing. And I do make just like one pager comics, no scripts is what I'm doing. But if I'm like banking into something like the comic I'm about to start making right now, it has to have a script because I just want to be able to like red market. You know what I mean? Like, well, this can wait, or this can be replaced by this. And this is just not the beat of the panel. It's not right in this moment. You know what I mean?
Yeah. worked off a script that someone else wrote for the first time. Like, I usually
Oh
don't
God.
script my stuff out. And I know you're listening, Andrew. It was a fine experience, but it was just so strange to work off a script. Like, I've never done it before, and it was just so. It kind of broke my brain. I was like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Like I've got to,
Yeah, you're like,
instead of having to
what does this
figure
look
this
like?
out panel to panel, I'm like, wait, I have to kind of play within this sandbox now. Like,
Yeah.
kind of felt, but I mean, I guess that was someone else's writing, so I wanted to do it justice as opposed to having the flexibility of writing it yourself. But yeah, it was just
No,
a
absolutely.
strange experience for me recently.
I've never been in that position. I wonder how I would fodder because I'd probably struggle just as much. I'd be like, I don't fucking know what you meant by this, dude. I'm gonna just will it.
Yeah, and to be
You know?
fair, he was like, as an artist, take any liberties you would like. But also, like, I guess, like, if you're working with a writer, you want to make them happy and try to bring their quote unquote vision to life of.
Sure.
But yeah, no, I'd never done that until recently. So I am kind of like, oh, maybe I should start doing this because it did kind of make the process like faster. I didn't have to think about it, but in a way it felt limiting too. So I think it's interesting to hear how different people kind of work it out, whether it's on the page or, via words on a script first. So
Yeah, for me, it's like two pieces of paper. One is like a long letter size paper that I can make as many boxes on it as I can. And then the other one is a corresponding numbered sheet. So they're two different things that by the end, it's actually like one staple. I carry around like a literal script that's like stapled together.
You know who else does that is I've seen like, do you carry around like the little clipboard so you can just draw wherever you'd like?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. That's the
I actually
one
have.
positive for me for digital is like, oh, the iPad is so much, but I know that you're like a print purist, and I feel like a coward even drawing on an iPad. I know it's not like
No, because there are cool things you can do. I like that with digital art, you can kind of like take whatever pencil that you want. Like, I'll be in the library and I'm using my nib and then I'll make a fucking mess. And I'm like, bro, I'm the worst.
banned
Like,
from Starbucks for getting ink
yeah,
on tables.
yeah, it's like they're like, get the fuck out of here, asshole. Like, you can't do this here. But I have I do respect the digital artists. Shout out my girl Ravel Clements. There's some artists right now that I am a very much a print purist. That's why I don't color. I really struggle to color digitally because I don't even. I think it's also because I'm technologically challenged. But there are a lot of acting, and you as well, cartoonists I respect that are working in the digital medium. It's clean, man. Like, you can't hate the game.
Yeah, it's simply for less mess, but like there is something about just sitting down and and then also like I mean you could always just sell the original art too. Like there's so much more merit I think in doing it physically that is lost digitally. Even like the way the paper feels, you miss that kind of thing, and it almost feels foreign
Yeah,
when you do one for a long time and go back to the other, and it's like, wait, why does this feel weird? Like it shouldn't
that's true.
feel weird, but it does, at least in my experience, anyways.
Literally, shout out my boy George Olson. He had his dad make me and another person these like I guess they're like 11, almost 11 by 17 pieces of thin plywood board so that I could draw wherever I wanted to.
Hell yeah!
Shout out George Olson's dad.
Shout out George
So
Olson's dead.
fuck yeah. Even though they're Mets fans, but it's fine.
Okay, so what do you have planned for the coming months, years, whatever? Like, what's your year to 2 year plan? I know you were talking about already working on your next book, but is there anything else down the pipe that you have planned?
Oh, for sure. I mean, I'm working on that book right now, which is going to be kind of like a two-part aspect. I'm really into the idea of comics and the marriage of comics of other mediums at the moment. I'm really trying to make a mixed media comic that's going to have like 3D elements, like clay. But the next book I'm working on is separate from that, and I'm really into. I want to showcase my love of puppets and puppetry and how beautiful puppets are. So that's kind of what I'm working on at the moment. After that, I mean, there's definitely a few different anthology works that I'm getting into. I'm just creating everything as it goes. You know what I mean? Life is so fickle and scary, and I think that as long as like I get up tomorrow and I have a goal of making another like I'm trying to make probably another 64-page comic by next fall. That's all I can hope for. You know what I mean? If I get there and I get there and I don't. That's just what it is. But I try not to work on just one thing. I think that it's important to allow yourself to procrastinate between your projects. Like I'm gonna work on like 3 different comics.
Music to my ears right there.
You know what I mean? Like I think that's so boring.
Sure.
You know what I mean? You might like let the steam die out to the thing that you wanted to work on, but when you know that thing is like going and going, you're gonna go balls to wall onto that. But you won't be able to go into that workplace of that particular project if you weren't already like, well, I'm getting bored of this other thing. I want to go back to this other. And I like also to keep them different, especially on their like content and what they are. Like I was working on that comic that, I didn't pencil. It was very loose. And then I went to go draw something rendered and it was so freeing. And then I went after that pissed me off and I went back to the former. You know what I mean? I'm going to be trying to make 3 different comics at once if I continue to wake up every day with breath in my lungs. I think that I don't know where comics will go as in terms of people consuming my comics, but they will be printed. I'd like to have like 3 comics in print, 3 new comics by the end of this year. So in total, like 4 comics I made in 2025.
Damn, hell yeah. So I do want to ask one thing, because you did mention like, the multimedia aspect of that one comic, and you wanted to do puppets and whatnot. Do you think I know right now you're like in deep with comics. Do you see comics as part of your creative process for the rest of your life? Because it seems like you've got other avenues to, express creativity.
My real goal in my life, this is kind of just random, is to own and operate my own recreational center here in Philly that I can teach art classes, especially comics classes to youth, to Philadelphia youth, like as after school programs as well. So comics are important to me, but they're also important for me to share my love of comics. I try to get every person that I love deeply to make a comic because I think that they are that wonderful. I think so highly of the medium. I love comics. I don't know if they love me, but I do believe that there's something in it for everyone. People have a story they want to express, and it's text and it's images. Sometimes not even either of them. You know what I mean? You can do so much with that, and whether or not I continue to make comics till I'm like an old lady, I definitely want to be someone who strives to implement comics as something that maybe they didn't know how to do before. So, I used to teach art classes when I was a teenager at my local rec center, but yeah, end goal is like being able to provide a means for kids to be exposed to that, whether they had art in their lives growing up or were even susceptible to that kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Definitely. Yeah, it's admirable. Hell yeah.
Thank you. I mean, it's just lit. Philly needs it. We're a fucking bunch of dickheads. There's a lot of young bulls running around who got no
We got to get them out of the Eagle Stadium jail. Get them all.
Yeah, dude. They're all in this fucking Eagle Stadium jail. I'm like, sit down, make a fucking comic about it. And that's your parole, dude.
Free our boys, Judge Dredd. Free our boys.
No, for real, dude. Dude, do you think the Judge Dredd movie is good?
Which
one?
one? Yeah.
The most recent one.
Wait,
it's what?
Yeah, the most recent one. It's okay as a remake of The Raid.
I've never seen the OG one.
The original had Sylvester Stallone, and besides nostalgia, it's not really anything to write home about. I feel like it's one of those movies that came out and, if you were a child when you saw it and had the toys, it was like badass. But I thought the second one was actually a better movie than the first. I hope there's no Judge Dredd purists out there that want to kill me for that, but
yeah, no, sorry about that.
I think that's the right take.
Yeah.
I like when they do the drugs in the movie and they're like, these are the rainbow slow-mo drugs and everything is rainbow slow-mo. I was like, fuck yeah, that shit's lit. How do I get that, dude? So, fuck yeah. Just wanted to know. I was curious about that. I'm always thinking about that movie, whether I like it or not, unfortunately.
There's an open invite for you on our Patreon, and if you have a Patreon, you can post it on yours as well, but we do a little show within a show called Real Boys, where we have cartoonists pick a movie for us all to watch, and we talk about it. It'd be fun to get into Dredd if you ever want to.
Oh, fuck yeah. All right, cool. Hell yeah. Well, that's definitely going to be mine, the most recent Dredd movie.
Hell yeah.
Because, also, I feel like when I watched it, I was like, whoa, I don't remember him being, obviously he's a cop, but I don't remember him being, so coppy. I'm like, whoa, dude, I thought you were a little bit more anti-hero than that, but you're kind of, the worst. You suck.
Yeah, no, he is the boot.
He's such a boot. I'm like, all right, bro, whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's going to be definitely my recommendation for them real boys.
Hell yeah. Alrighty. Well, we definitely want to thank you for coming on the show today, Connie. Before we get out of here, I know we've kind of talked about, your big cartel and so forth, but where can people follow you on social media, get the work and whatnot?
If you are listening to this and you look on Instagram, you can find my Instagram. It's Connie_archive. If you are listening to this and it's not there, then you can go to Connie-Myers.tumblr.com. That is where my comics will rely. I don't see myself existing on the Instagram.com for much longer. However, until that time, that is where you can consume my work.
Hell yeah. And as we said earlier, Cram Books has the new one coming out, or one of the new ones rather coming out. And you can pre-order the book now. And, I said this to you off air, but I do want to say it on air. I'm just glad you're still here creating. I think that you have some of the most interesting work going on. We did award, I think you're a back-to-back award winner on our show for Pimpin' the Shadows.
Thank you.
So
thank you so much.
Yeah. So excited to see more, and we appreciate your time today.
I appreciate you so much. You do a viable service for the people who are doodling, and they're sitting there and they need something fucking funny to listen to.
Hell yeah.
All right, well, that will do it for this episode. Thank you so much for listening. And until next time, stay gutter.
You're